Elias Vance had prepared for many strange things before coming to the Curathi Dominion, but nothing in his diplomatic training ever warned him about glowing floors, floating translators, or that warm humming sound that followed him everywhere inside the palace. He kept his hands folded carefully behind his back as he walked, hoping the gesture made him look calm. In truth, he felt like a student on his first day in a new school, trying not to make a fool of himself in front of everyone. The Curathi Palace was a wide and shining structure made of silver stone that shifted color depending on where he stood. Sometimes it looked blue, sometimes green, and sometimes a color he could not name. Elias tried not to stare too much, but it was hard not to. Everything here felt like it came from a dream. Even the air was different, holding a gentle warmth that made him feel as if sunlight was touching him, even indoors. A pair of Curathi escorts glided beside him on long, elegant limbs. Their large, crystalline crests shimmered in soft pink tones, and their eyes looked like polished obsidian. Their translator devices repeated their speech in smooth English, but Elias could still hear the musical notes of their natural language underneath. "The Queen awaits," one of them said. Elias nodded, trying to appear confident. "Of course. I am honored." He had practiced that line in the mirror earlier. It sounded less shaky then. The path soon opened into a massive chamber with a high ceiling that seemed to ripple like calm water. At the center stood Queen Velara, ruler of the Curathi Dominion. She was taller than most of her people, graceful, and surrounded by soft lights that drifted around her like slow-moving fireflies. Her crest was larger, bright with shifting colors that flowed like a sunrise. Elias had read reports that the queen was known for her wisdom, fairness, and an odd sense of humor that sometimes confused visiting diplomats. She watched him approach with clear interest. "Ambassador Elias Vance, of the Terran Union," the translator announced for him. Elias stepped forward and gave what he hoped was a respectful bow. "Your Majesty, thank you for welcoming me." Queen Velara's eyes focused on him with curious warmth. "Welcome to my world, human. I hope your journey was pleasant." "It was memorable," Elias answered honestly. The queen made a soft, amused sound, something between a hum and a quiet laugh. Elias knew he needed to perform the official opening ritual now. He had read the cultural briefing before arriving. Approach the throne. Place a hand over the heart. Then greet the queen. The instructions sounded very normal. But when he looked at the throne carved from crystal-like stone with delicate etchings, he noticed something he hadn't seen in the sketches. A glowing, crest-like ornament sat on the top edge, shaped almost like a tall crown of light. His human curiosity stirred. He leaned slightly toward it, wondering how it felt. Was it warm? Was it some kind of ceremonial decoration? Maybe it was part of the palace's technology? The report had not mentioned it. Velara watched him more carefully now, though Elias did not notice. He stepped closer. Just a quick look, he told himself. As he raised his hand to examine the glowing crest, he heard someone behind him inhale sharply, but he thought it was only a guard shifting. His fingers brushed the crest. It felt soft, almost alive, warm like sunlight, gentle like silk. He touched it for less than a second before realizing he probably should not be poking the queen's furniture. He pulled his hand back quickly. "Ah, sorry, Your Majesty. I was only curious." The hall went very quiet. The queen blinked slowly. Her crest flashed a bright gold. Then, she began to laugh, a smooth, warm laugh that echoed across the chamber. "My dear human," she said, sounding more amused than offended. "You do realize that means marriage, right?" Elias froze. His brain stopped working. His heart did a small backflip inside his chest. "Marriage?" he croaked, his voice suddenly small. What do you mean, marriage?" The Curathi guards behind him exchanged looks that he didn't understand. But their shifting crest colors suggested something serious. Queen Velara tilted her head with clear enjoyment. In Curathi culture, touching the royal bond crest is a formal declaration of partnership, a gesture made only when one seeks union with the queen. It is a promise. A vow. Elias felt the color drain from his face. I didn't know. It wasn't. That wasn't. Velara's laughter grew even warmer. I know you did not intend it. But the gesture has been made. He heard one of the Terran aides whisper urgently behind him, Ambassador, I think you just proposed. Another whispered, We are all going to lose our jobs. Queen Velara stepped down from her throne with smooth, graceful movements. Elias tried to step back, but stopped himself. Running away from a queen seemed like a very poor diplomatic choice. She circled him once, studying him with curious interest, like someone examining a strange new artifact. Humans truly are fearless, she murmured. You walk into a foreign palace and touch the one thing no one is allowed to touch. It is charming, in a way. Elias was too embarrassed to speak. Your Majesty, he finally managed. I didn't know it had such meaning. I'm so sorry for the misunderstanding. Is there a way to undo it? Velara's crest shimmered. There is, but it is complicated. Complicated, Elias realized, usually meant diplomatic nightmare. He tried to calm his breathing. He tried to ignore the fact that dozens of Kirathi attendants were whispering excitedly. He also tried not to faint. The queen took a small step closer. Elias felt strangely calmer in her presence. I find this situation delightful, she said softly. Do not fear, human diplomat. You are not in danger. But you have done something historic today. Elias swallowed. Historic? Good or bad? Her eyes sparkled with amusement. That depends on what you choose to do next. He wasn't sure if that was comforting. Velara smiled again, kind, amused, and gently teasing. Welcome to the Kirathi Dominion, Ambassador Elias Vance. Whether you intended it or not, you have already changed everything. Elias stood there, unsure whether to laugh, apologize again, or collapse. All he knew was this. His mission had only just begun, and it was already far more complicated than any diplomat training manual had ever prepared him for. The news of Elias's accidental proposal did not stay inside the palace for long. Kirathi attendants whispered, guards exchanged looks, and translators buzzed with curious excitement. By the time Elias reached the guest chambers assigned to him, the entire palace seemed to hum with rumors. He sat on the soft, warm seat near the window, staring at the glowing city outside. Lights floated between tall structures like slow-moving lanterns. Kirathi citizens walked along suspended pathways that curved gently in the air. It was all breathtaking, but Elias couldn't enjoy any of it. His mind repeated the same thought over and over. He had just proposed to a queen. His assistant, Lyra, paced back and forth in the room, her arms folded tightly. Ambassador, this is a crisis. Elias sighed. Yes. Thank you for confirming what I already know. Do you understand what the royal bond crest is? She continued. It's mentioned in only 2 Terran reports, both very old, and both said, it is sacred. I know that now, Elias muttered, rubbing his forehead. I just thought it was decoration. Lyra stopped pacing. You touched the equivalent of a wedding ring. No worse. You touched the wedding ring, the engagement ring, the family crest, and royal seal, all at once. Elias groaned and sank deeper into the seat. I didn't come here to marry anyone. I came here to negotiate peaceful trade. A soft chime echoed through the chamber. The door slid open, and a Kirathi counselor entered. His crest shimmered in calm blue tones, and his posture was respectful. Ambassador Vance, the counselor said, the Queen requests your presence for a private discussion. Elias stood quickly. Of course. I'll come right away, Lyra whispered as he passed her. Please do not touch anything else. He nodded, though he had very little confidence in his ability to avoid future mistakes. The counselor led Elias through long corridors that curved and shifted in gentle patterns. The walls glowed faintly, providing soft light without visible lamps. It felt peaceful, but Elias's heart was beating far too fast to enjoy it. They stopped before a large archway decorated with silver patterns. The counselor bowed and stepped aside. Elias took a deep breath and entered. Queen Velara stood near a floating window-like screen showing a view of her world's sky. Shades of purple and gold streaked the horizon. She turned toward him, her expression calm and curious. Elias bowed awkwardly. "Your Majesty, I'm deeply sorry for earlier. I did not understand the meaning behind the crest." Velara laughed softly. "If you had understood, you would not have touched it. That much is obvious." He winced. "I truly did not intend any disrespect." "I know," she said gently. "But misunderstandings between cultures often shape history more than intentions do." Her words made him swallow nervously. "Is there a way to undo what happened?" "There is," she said. "But it is not simple. Krathi customs are old, and the gesture of touching the bond crest is seen as a promise, a deep one. It is not broken easily." Elias nodded slowly, though his nerves tightened. "What must be done?" Velara walked to a circular table that appeared to grow from the ground itself. She motioned for Elias to join her. When he did, she folded her long fingers together and studied him with an expression that was both thoughtful and amused. "First," she said, "you must understand the situation fully. News of your gesture has already spread beyond the palace. Soon, it will reach other worlds." Elias felt his stomach twist. "That fast? Kurathi are excellent at communicating," she said with a light chuckle. "Also, your actions were quite surprising. I noticed." Elias replied, weakly. The queen continued. "There are two paths available to us. The first is the annulment ritual. It is rarely used, and it requires both individuals to declare the bond invalid before the royal council." "That sounds simple enough," Elias said quickly. Velara shook her head. "It is not. Annulment is seen as a sign that one party acted without honor or understanding. It would reflect poorly on the Terran Union. Some may think humans are careless with tradition." Elias frowned. "That could damage trust between their civilizations." "And the second path?" he asked. Her crest shimmered in bright gold. "You accept the bond as genuine." Elias almost choked on air. I accept it? As in marriage?" Velara tilted her head, amused. "In essence, yes. But our partnerships are not the same as human marriages. They are not binding in the same way, but symbolic. A partnership means shared respect, cooperation, and unity between our peoples." "That still sounds like an actual marriage," Elias muttered. "It is more like a formal alliance through personal connection," she explained. "Nothing forced, nothing demanding, but it is very important to our culture." Elias thought for a long moment. Both choices felt heavy, but refusing the bond could insult an entire civilization. Accepting it, well, that was another kind of impossible problem. The queen watched him with patient eyes. "Do not decide now. You will have time." Elias finally said, "I appreciate that, Your Majesty." She gave him a gentle, warm smile. "You are a curious creature." Elias Vance. "Most diplomats enter this palace with fear. You walked in and touched the most sacred object as if it were a toy." He felt his cheeks warm. "I didn't mean to." "I know," she said again, laughing softly. "That is why it was charming." The word charming did nothing to calm his nerves. Before he could respond, a soft chime echoed through the chamber, and an attendant entered. "Your Majesty," the attendant said, "a communication request has arrived from the Zyran Coalition. They seek answers regarding the rumored union." Elias blinked. Already? They know already? The Queen nodded, amused. It appears the entire galaxy is very interested in you. He felt faint. The Queen stepped closer, her tone more serious. This situation may cause political waves, Ambassador. Some will support the idea of our alliance. Others will not. But whatever happens, you and I must handle it together. Elias took a slow breath. I understand. The Queen's crest glowed softly. Then rest for now. Tomorrow, we will begin the compatibility period. The what? The week we spend together to see if our partnership is suitable. Elias felt his heart jump again. A whole week? Yes, she said with a kind smile. Think of it as time to learn about each other, and about what this bond could mean. Elias left the chamber in a daze. As he walked back to his quarters, one overwhelming thought echoed in his mind. Things were only going to get more complicated from here. Elias woke the next morning, feeling as if he had barely slept. His mind kept running in circles all night, thinking about the compatibility period the Queen had mentioned. A whole week with a royal leader, learning each other's ways? It sounded more like a strange cultural experiment than diplomacy. Or maybe both. He dressed in his formal Terran clothes and stepped out into the hallway, where a Kurathi attendant waited. The attendant's crest glowed bright teal, which Elias had learned meant friendliness. Good morning, Ambassador, the translator announced. The Queen is ready for the day's activities. Elias nodded and followed, trying to walk with confidence even though he felt like stumbling over his own feet. As they walked through the palace, he noticed new decorations had appeared overnight. A soft pattern of lights and symbols along the walls. They shimmered in warm colors. What are these? Elias asked. They are signs of welcome for the compatibility period, the attendant explained. For a queen's bond to be tested, the palace itself participates. Elias blinked. The palace participates? The attendant bowed respectfully. In a symbolic way, yes. Elias sighed quietly. Nothing here was ever simple. The doors to a new chamber opened, and Queen Velara stood inside, her crest glowing in soft golds. She turned to Elias with a warm expression. Good morning, Elias Vance. I hope you rested well. He didn't want to lie, but he also didn't want to look nervous. I rested enough, Your Majesty. Her eyes sparkled with amusement. Honesty is refreshing. Many diplomats would claim they slept wonderfully while shaking in fear. I was not shaking, Elias said quickly. You were a little, she teased lightly. His shoulders slumped. I probably was. Velara moved closer to a floating platform that extended into the air like a balcony. Today, she said, you and I will explore each other's cultures, our values, our ways of thinking, our differences and similarities. This is the purpose of compatibility. Elias nodded slowly. That sounds reasonable. It is also fun, she added. He wasn't sure about that, but she seemed confident. A small hover sphere floated toward them with a gentle humming sound. The Queen stepped onto it gracefully. Elias hesitated but followed. Careful not to fall. The sphere rose gently and carried them out through an opening in the palace. The sight made Elias forget his nerves for a moment. The Kurathi capital stretched far into the distance, full of soaring towers and bridges of floating light. Soft music drifted through the air, coming from unseen sources. Large, gentle creatures moved through the sky like slow birds made of shimmering mist. It's beautiful, he said without thinking. Velara smiled. Humans often say that. I am glad you appreciate it. The sphere moved forward smoothly, gliding between towers until they reached a large garden suspended mid-air. Flowers of glowing blue and pink grew in curved patterns, and the ground under Elias's feet felt soft, like warm sand. This is the Garden of First Harmony, Velara explained. Here, we begin our exchanges. Elias looked around. What do we do first? You will teach me something human, she said. Something simple, but meaningful. Elias thought hard. He needed something safe, universal, and definitely not something that caused accidental marriage. After a moment, he said, "I can teach you a handshake." The queen blinked. "A what?" "A handshake," Elias repeated, lifting his hand. "Humans greet each other by holding hands and shaking them lightly." Velara studied his hand with curiosity. "It is a sign of trust?" "Yes," Elias said. "You show you are friendly. No weapons, no danger." The queen stepped closer and gently placed her hand in his. Her skin felt smooth and slightly warm, almost like polished stone that had been touched by sunlight. "Like this?" she asked. "Yes." "And then you move it up and down." She followed his movement, her grip gentle. Her crest glowed with soft interest. "This is simple and pleasant." Elias smiled a little. "It's something everyone on Earth knows." "I like it," Velara said. "It expresses connection without assumption." He was glad she found it harmless. "Now," she said, "it is my turn to teach you something." Elias tensed. "As long as it does not involve touching more sacred objects." Velara laughed. "No, nothing like that." She led him to a circular platform, where a gentle pulse of light rose from the center. "This is a Kurathi symbol of honesty. When two people share a moment of open truth, they stand here." Elias stepped onto the platform with her. The light grew brighter, surrounding them with warm colors. "What do we do?" he asked. "We each speak a truth about ourselves," she said. "Something simple, something real." Elias thought for a moment. "I'm afraid of doing the wrong thing here." Velara's expression softened. "And I am afraid of being misunderstood by your people." The light glowed even brighter, as if responding to their honesty. "That was strangely relaxing," Elias said. Velara nodded. "Truth brings clarity, even small truths." They continued through the garden, sharing small lessons from each culture. Elias taught her about Terran art, how humans painted scenes from memory, emotion, or imagination. The queen taught him about Kurathi memory stones, small crystals that played gentle shapes of light, representing important thoughts. As the hours passed, Elias found himself relaxing more. The queen was not frightening. She was curious, intelligent, and surprisingly humorous. She asked questions about Earth, about Terran music, about human families. At one point, she asked, "Are all humans as bold as you?" Elias nearly choked. "Bold? I'm not bold. I'm just unlucky." She laughed, crest shimmering brightly. "Yet, you continue calmly through everything that has happened. That is boldness to me." Elias looked away, flustered. "I'm trying my best." "And that," she said softly, "is why I think compatibility may not be difficult for us." Before he could respond, a soft alarm echoed through the garden. A Kurathi attendant hurried toward them. "Your Majesty," the attendant said, "a message has arrived from the Terran Union. They request immediate clarification about the rumored bond." Elias felt a wave of dread. "They probably think I've lost my mind." Velara asked calmly, "Will you speak to them with me?" He hesitated, but only briefly. "Yes, I should." The queen gave a small, approving smile. "Good. Because tomorrow, we begin the second phase. A deeper one." Elias blinked. "There are phases?" "3, she replied. "Today was only the beginning." As they headed back to the palace, Elias realized something surprising. He no longer felt only fear. Something else was growing inside him. Curiosity, respect, and maybe even a strange sense of connection. He still didn't know how the week would end. But he knew this. The galaxy was watching, and he and the Queen were walking into history together. The second phase of the compatibility week began earlier than Elias expected. He was still rubbing sleep from his eyes when a soft chime echoed through his chamber. The door opened, and Lyra hurried in, her face full of worry. "Ambassador, the Terran Union sent another message. They want a clear explanation today. They think the Kurathi might be forcing you into something." Elias sighed. "No one is forcing me. I'm just involved in a misunderstanding of cosmic size." Lyra raised an eyebrow. "Your misunderstanding is trending in half the galaxy." Elias groaned. "Please, don't tell me that." But he didn't have long to worry, because a Kurathi attendant arrived soon after, informing him the Queen was waiting for him in the Hall of Clarity. Elias followed, feeling a mix of nerves and curiosity. Every day in this strange world made him feel more aware of how big the galaxy was and how small he was inside it. The Hall of Clarity was larger than the other rooms he had visited. Soft light drifted down from the ceiling, forming gentle, mist-like shapes above their heads. Queen Velara stood in the center, calm and graceful. When she saw Elias enter, her crest shimmered in warm gold. "Good morning, Elias. Today, we face something difficult." Elias nodded. "The message from the Terran Union?" "And from others," Velara said. "Several neighboring civilizations request a statement. Some are confused. Some are amused. Some are suspicious." Elias took a steady breath. "I'm ready to speak with them." But Velara shook her head gently. "Before we speak to anyone, you and I must complete Phase 2. Elias blinked. "What exactly is Phase 2? "Understanding," the Queen said. "Today, we learn each other's weaknesses." Elias's eyes widened. "Weaknesses?" "Yes," she said. "In Kurathi belief, true compatibility means knowing not only strengths, but also fears, doubts, and limits. Only then can two sides trust each other fully." Elias swallowed. "That sounds intense." Velara offered a soft smile. "It is important, not painful." The Queen motioned for him to follow her through a side passage. The hall opened into a quiet room with a wide circular floor that glowed faintly. The air felt different here. Calm, heavy with quiet importance. "This is the Chamber of Reflection," Velara explained. "It shows not images, but feelings." Elias took a careful step inside. "How does it work?" "The chamber senses emotional truth," she said. "When you speak honestly, the room reacts with light or color." Elias looked around nervously. "So this room will know when I am scared?" "It will know when you are honest," Velara corrected softly. "Fear is not shameful." Elias nodded slowly. If he wanted this situation to be handled well for humans, for Kurathi, for diplomacy, then honesty was necessary. He stepped fully onto the glowing surface. The light brightened, welcoming him. "Elias," she said gently, "tell me something that troubles you." He hesitated. The floor dimmed slightly. He sighed. "I don't want to disappoint my people." The floor brightened again. Velara's expression softened. "Humans carry heavy pressure. I have noticed this." "What else?" Elias looked down at his hands. "I'm afraid of making the wrong decision. For myself, for Earth, for you, for everyone." The floor glowed brighter, filling the chamber with warm gold. "Good," Velara said softly. "Honesty is strength, and now I will share mine." Elias looked up at her curiously. She continued. "I fear that my people expect me to be perfect. A queen must always know the right answer. But I do not. And this situation is new for me. I do not wish to fail my people or you." Elias blinked in surprise. He had not expected a queen to express such human-like worry. The floor responded with a soft wave of light, gentle and comforting. "This chamber approves your honesty," Velara said with a small smile. "We are compatible in this way." Elias felt a sudden warmth in his chest. Something about the queen's openness made her feel less like a distant ruler and more like someone he could actually talk to. They spent more time sharing small truths, fears, mistakes they had made in the past, things they hoped for. The chamber responded each time, growing brighter or softer, depending on their honesty. By the end, Elias felt lighter, as if he had set down a heavy backpack he didn't know he was carrying. When they left the chamber, the queen said, "You did well, Elias Vance." "I was nervous the whole time," he admitted. "That is normal," she said. "Yet you were truthful anyway. That is why this phase matters." Before Elias could respond, a new voice spoke from behind them. "Your Majesty, the communication from the Terran Council is prepared," an attendant announced. Elias straightened. "It's time?" "It is," Velara said. "But we will face them together." The communication chamber was a tall room filled with floating screens. When Elias and the Queen entered, several screens lit up at once, showing faces of Terran representatives. Their expressions were serious, some worried, some confused. "Ambassador Vance," one official said, "is it true that you engaged in a cultural bonding ritual with the Kurathi Queen?" Elias opened his mouth, but the Queen gently raised her hand, allowing him to speak when he was ready. He nodded. "It was an accident," he said calmly. "I didn't know the meaning behind the gesture. But the Queen has treated me with respect. I am safe, and we are working through the situation together." Another official asked, "Are you being pressured into anything?" "No," Elias said firmly. "No pressure, just cooperation." The Queen then stepped forward, her tone gentle but confident. "We respect human tradition. We do not force bonds. The misunderstanding is unfortunate, but we value the opportunity to learn from it." The Terran representatives looked at each other, whispering off-screen. Then, the lead spokesperson spoke again. "We trust your judgment, Ambassador. Continue the compatibility process, and please send updates." The call ended. Elias let out a long breath. "That went better than I expected." "Honesty again," Velara said with a soft smile. "It always helps." Before they could leave the chamber, another attendant rushed in. "Your Majesty," he said urgently. "The Zyran Coalition has announced they want to send observers. They say the potential Terran-Kurathi bond may affect interstellar politics." Elias groaned quietly. "The whole galaxy is watching now. And to speak. Way." End quote. Velara nodded. "Yes. Which means Phase 3 will be even more important." Elias swallowed. "What is Phase 3? "Unity," she said softly. "Tomorrow, we begin the final test." Elias felt the weight of the moment settle on him. Everything was building toward something bigger than he had imagined. But he wasn't afraid. Not like before. He and the Queen were in this together. And tomorrow, they would face the last step. Elias woke on the final day of the compatibility week, feeling strangely calm. Maybe it was because he had survived so many surprises already. Maybe it was because Queen Velara had never treated him with anything but patience and kindness. Or maybe he was simply too tired to panic anymore. But when he stepped outside his chamber, he noticed something different. The palace felt quieter, calmer, almost solemn. The lights on the walls glowed in slow waves, like gentle breathing. Even the attendants moved with softer steps. A Kurathi guide approached him with a respectful bow. "Ambassador Vance, the Queen awaits you in the Hall of Union." "Alaun." "Alaun." Elias blinked. "Union? That sounds intense." "It is the final phase," the guide said warmly. "But do not fear. Today is about choice." Elias nodded, though his heart already beat faster. He followed the guide through long halls until they reached tall golden doors that shimmered like sunlight reflecting on water. When the doors opened, Elias stepped inside and froze for a moment. The Hall of Union was breathtaking. The high ceiling glowed like a soft sunrise. Hundreds of tiny lights floated in the air, drifting slowly like stars underwater. The floor was made of smooth white stone that reflected gentle colors as Elias walked. At the center of the hall stood Queen Velara, her crest glowing in a calm blend of silver and gold. She looked peaceful. She looked confident. She looked almost hopeful. "Welcome, Elias," she said softly. "Today is very important for both of us." Elias took a deep breath and stepped forward. "I'm ready, I think." Velara smiled at his honesty. "Good. Honesty is the foundation of unity." They stood facing each other, only a few steps apart. There were no guards, no attendants, no floating screens. Just the two of them. For a moment, neither spoke. The hall filled the silence with a soft, warm glow. Finally, Velara said, "Elias Vance, you and I have walked through understanding, through honesty, through cooperation. Today, we decide whether the bond you created accidentally or not will stand." Elias swallowed lightly. "You said today is about choice." "Yes," Velara replied. "In Curathi culture, unity cannot exist without free will. No ceremony, no tradition can force a bond. You must choose it." Elias nodded slowly. The queen continued, "I will ask you one question. Your answer will decide the path forward." Elias's hands felt a little shaky, but he took a steadying breath. "Ask me." Velara lifted a small crystal sphere from a pedestal beside her. It glowed softly in her hand. "This is the orb of intention. When you speak your answer, the orb will show your sincerity. It cannot be controlled. Honesty room. Honesty orb. Honesty halls." Elias murmured to himself. "Your culture really likes honesty." "It is the heart of trust," she said gently. She held the orb between them. Its light flickered like a tiny star. "Elias Vance of the Terran Union," the queen said, her voice soft but strong. "Do you choose to honor the bond you created? Not by accident, but by intention. Do you accept unity between us, symbolizing cooperation and trust between our peoples?" Elias stared at the orb. For a moment, the whole galaxy felt silent. He thought of Earth, of his responsibilities, of every diplomat watching him from light years away. But he also thought of the queen, of her laughter, her honesty, her calm strength, her gentle patience, and the truth appeared inside him, simple and clear. He looked at her and nodded. "Yes," he said, "I choose it." The orb flashed brilliantly, glowing brighter than he expected, filling the hall with warm gold light. Velara's crest lit up in a matching glow. The hall responded too. The floating lights rose higher, swirling around them like stars celebrating. The queen looked at him with genuine warmth. "Then our bond is real." Elias felt a strange relief wash over him. "So, this means I'm officially part of an interstellar partnership?" Velara smiled. "You already were. But now, it is chosen instead of accidental." Elias chuckled softly, feeling lighter than he had all week. "And thank you," she said, "for walking through this with courage." Before they could speak further, the hall doors opened, and several Curathi council members entered, followed by Terran representatives who had arrived via remote projection. They all stopped, watching the glowing orb in Elias's hand. One Terran representative asked, "Did he choose it?" Elias turned toward them and nodded. "I did. And I believe it's the right choice." The representative blinked, surprised but not displeased. "If you believe this partnership benefits peace and cooperation, then the Terran Union supports your decision." The Curathi Council bowed their heads in approval. "Unity between our peoples will be remembered in our history." Elias felt slightly overwhelmed. "Wow. No pressure." Velara laughed softly beside him. "You handled the hardest part already." The ceremony ended with calm applause from the Curathi officials and respectful gestures from the Terran representatives. When the hall finally emptied, only Elias and the Queen remained. He looked at her with a small smile. So, what happens now? She stepped closer, her voice gentle. Now we begin the real work, building trust between our worlds. Together. Elias nodded. I'm ready. She studied him for a moment, then said with playful warmth, You know, Elias, out of all the ways you could have started a diplomatic mission, you chose the most dramatic one. He groaned softly. Please, don't remind me. She chuckled. Oh, I will remind you often. It is part of our bond. He covered his face with one hand. This is my destiny now, isn't it? A destiny you chose, Valara said with amused pride. Elias lowered his hand and met her eyes. Yes, I chose it. They walked out of the hall side by side. Outside, the palace lights glowed brighter, as if welcoming a new chapter. The whole city shimmered with quiet celebration. Elias realized that he was no longer afraid. Somehow, through all the confusion, mistakes, and surprises, he and the Queen had built a connection that felt real and strong. The galaxy might have expected chaos. Instead, it got unity. And so, the most unexpected partnership in human history began, not through force, not through pressure, but through understanding, through a bond that started by accident and became something truly meaningful.